Hi everyone, time again for a new update. So thank you, first of all, thank you so much to all of you who stayed on after this kind of hiccup that Patreon kind of doled out last week. But we'll see what happens with Patreon. But so far I'm staying with it, and I'm so glad that you're staying with me. But okay, on to today's topic. Today's topic would be the kind of how the file, the whole project is built up so far. And we're going to look at elevation, how the terrain is built, and we're also going to look at lakes and rivers. So this is going to be the kind of an in-depth, not in detail, but how everything works. And then I hope to be able to do in the next week or so each little part, how they all fit together. But so far I'm really happy with how the river systems are working out. There's still a few more tweaks before I'm really I think it's nailed it, but I'm very close. So it's time to look at it. This is what it looks like in the island project. And you can see that we have the ocean, we have lakes, and we have major rivers that I've added artistically, meaning I've decided they need to go in those spots. The same thing over here is a big lake, and here's a small lake, and we have a river going down to the lake. And then I've also, thanks to Geoglyph and their wonderful reflow macro, also automatically added tiny rivers and creeks flowing naturally, just flowing through the landscape where they're supposed to be. It's not perfect. I need to do a few more tweaks before I made them exactly the way I want to, but I'm very close. I've also been able to add, some of the rivers don't reach the ocean or the big lake. They just end up in marshlands, or they create wetlands. These wetlands I haven't really added yet, but I figured out how to, so that will be an in-depth look. But now we're going to look at how the file is constructed, and I will also put a link to all the cartographer pledgers. You will get this file that I'm working with here right now, so you can tweak and kind of work with it the way you want to, and the others, you can just look at it and see how things are working. So let's take a look at the node network. And this looks a bit like a motherboard, and it also looks different because there's a new version of World Machine, so they changed how this looks like. And to me, it looks a bit more dull and kind of boring to look at compared to what it used to be, but it's more functional in a way. So we have a bunch of, I've looked at it in the previous video, but now there's more advanced. Now there are more components to it. So let's try and split this up. We have major groups here in each of these. We have one that is kind of purple here. We have a green-brown one here. We have a blue group here, and we have a big that I made kind of sandy beige, and we have another red one here. So I'm going to take each of the major components first. Here, the purple group here is the control and view group. That's how you interact with it. Once all the programming is done, you just want to construct terrain and you want to see what it looks like while you're working. It's all in this purple group here. And if we zoom in so we can see this in detail, we have all the controllers, the layout controllers here for the terrains, for the highlands, the features, and various erosion control. And we have lakes and rivers, and then we have the different views, meaning if I want to look at the texture view, I want to just look at an elevation colored view, or I want to any other type of view. There will be more views added as the things advance and progress. And then we have on the right here, we have the export part. Here is where all the exports. So far it's only elevation and texture, not more than that. But there will be more stuff added. And then we have the next major group here. Now we come into the generation of things, not the control, but the generation. And this is the where we actually generate all the elevation, what the terrain will actually look like in the matter of elevation, where mountains go, where the coastlines are, and stuff like that. That will be in here. And the first bit here is what I called terrain 1, 2, and 3. These are the base terrains, meaning should something be flat or undulating, or should it be harsh, meaning all of a sudden there are ravines, crevices, and stuff like that in it. So it's just a general character, and you can play with these 3 different ones. That's why I have just given them terrain 1, terrain 2, and terrain 3. I haven't named them yet because I don't have any real names for them yet. And then we have the highlands. This is what goes on top of the base terrain. And I have a blur built in here to in between the others, so I can kind of blur out and even out things ugly bits I don't like from the base terrain. And then I can put there only 2 types of highlands so far. But they will be added more and more as things progress. So eventually there might be 10 or 20 of each of these. And then on top of that, behind it is terrain features. And I only have hollows, meaning I could simply cut a big hole in it if I want a lake or something in it. But there will be other types of things in here. For instance, glaciation. I'm looking at things like boulders, and other things could be added here as well, and then provided with a controller that goes into the control group. The reason I work with 3 different levels of terrain generations, one on top of the other, is that I want to be able to remember this is going to be not just one little terrain. This setup is going to be able to provide enough variation to be able to map a whole continent if need be. So in order to create natural variation, I want to be able to blend one base terrain with a whole bunch of different types of highlands or features, or even blend different base terrains together. So therefore I can create basically unlimited amount of combinations. There is no chance that one type of terrain will look exactly like the other one. And it's more like out in nature. Terrain resembles each other, but it's not exactly the same. And this is a way to do that without a simple way of doing it with a lot of artistic control, because that's the other key input here. You as the user of this file should be able to create the combination of things as you see fit, so to speak. So this is the plumbing behind it, that as a user you should not have to fiddle around with this much. The next group, the blue group here, has to do with water. And here we have the rivers, and these are the big rivers that you want to tell exactly that should kind of break the terrain, meaning I want to create a river valley, or then you can use this river tool. It's that World Machine has a built-in river tool, but it's only in early beta, so I don't think it works that well. So this is one that I have cooked up myself, and it's far from perfect, but it's still better than World Machine's tool in my opinion. But hopefully World Machine will have a tool built in soon that will be even better. And then we have lakes, and that's basically just to fill a hole with terrain, and you can also use, it will create a mask so you can color it. And then we have oceans, and the reason I have oceans here is to basically blur all the terrain that is under the ocean level. So everything that is beneath the ocean, the sea level, will be blurred a bit, so it will be fuzzy. That way it will look more like it's underwater. So it's more an artistic than really something that is kind of really useful. And then I have another weird little group here that is more technical. It's called Mask Combine, and it's one of these things that will disappear eventually. It's just there so I can mix the different ones, the wetlands, the oceans, and the water mask, so I can use that for later for texturing and in Photoshop and stuff like that. Eventually this group will be integrated, but this is just a work in development. And believe me, there's a lot of fidgety spaghetti stuff that I've weeded out of the file that you will see. There's more stuff in my development version, so to speak. I'm also making sure that between these major groups I have these these special devices that hooked up. They are called checkpoints, so I can actually assemble the spaghetti on one side and then have it go to the other one. This is so I can easily add more stuff in between, and I can also move these big groups around without causing too much problem. So to organize wires is part of the thing, and you still see there's still some spaghetti going around in between here that should be like this one, for instance, that need to be sorted out in the when it's finalized. The big group over here is what I call biomes. This mainly deals with texturing, but texturing is still very primitive. So what you see in the rendering here is just a placeholder texture. I just want to something that looks a bit like terrain. So it's simply beach here, and you have the transition from beach up to grassland, and I want to have mountains or rocks sticking out here a bit. So it's just the very embryo, so I can see that this actually works. And the reason there is a little bit more than just the texturing to it. You have rivers. Rivers actually cut holes in landscapes, and even these small creeks, they actually kind of create their little path through, so to speak. So they actually dig a little bit into it. So it affects the elevation of a little bit as well. But there will be a kind of non-creeked version of the elevation as well that you can use, for instance, if you want to use it in other applications down the line. If you want to just create a huge world map or something, and you want what the land is without the elevation, so elevation of small creeks and stuff, because it looks kind of artificial, so you want to be able to do that in like Vue or TerraGen or something, so that way you can circumvent this. So there will be probably about 5 or 6 different versions of elevation for different uses, and that we get into the export section over here. This is only very basic right now. I have shadow, I have texture, primitive texture, and elevation. But this will probably be like 30 or so different things that you can export as needed, all sorts of masks, or different types of elevation. Do you want to see the ocean depths, for instance, or do you just want elevation to be the surface of waters? So those will be a lot of different things. Do you want to have texture with forest, or do you want to have textures without forest? Elevation with forest, elevation without forest, etc. So those are the really kind of the intricate bits, because this is where you generate the stuff that you later will use in order to create the final renderings, Photoshop files, things for Illustrator, etc., 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 geographical information systems, and so on. And when you work with it, then it will be this part here. So you have all the different layout controllers that you control where all the features, where you want rivers, they go over here, where you want lakes, and here you have the different views to look at it. Right now I only have the elevation view with forest and without forest, and the with forest doesn't work yet because I haven't even, the forest is only experimental, so I haven't played with it, but I didn't take it away. And then you have what I call the biotope view. We can look at it here, and like you see, it just turned black, so it's not even implemented yet, so it doesn't work. But we have elevation view that we can look at it, and if you look at elevation view, it looks like this. And then I click on the device view again, and then we can look at the texture overview, and then it looks like this. And that's one of the key things that I really love about World Machine. You can create many of the different views that you can look at the terrain in different, you can emphasize different types of data, and therefore when you create things, you can actually look at a lot of different things. You can basically put in whatever type of data you want, but usually elevation, texture, masks, and things like that. And how you use the different layouts is that you can look at terrain 1, for instance, and then we can see here, if we wait a few seconds, here you have the whole, this little white square is the area that you can see here in the preview, and the ones that were looked at in the 3D view, and here you have the whole project, and here you can see terrain 1 is used in these areas. And then I can simply see I can go to terrain 2, I can see it's used in this area and here, and I have terrain 3, and it's used in these areas. And then I have various highlands are used here, here, and here. And you have a little bit of highland too. I only use that in a few bits here because I just created that extra highlands. Remember, I did a video a couple of weeks ago when how to use the layout controllers, and that's how you use these different controllers. So all these controllers are using that layout control. So you have full artistic control where you want the different terrain types, where you want rivers, where you want lakes. The problem with lakes is that you need a natural place, hole to fill with water, so to speak. Otherwise it doesn't work well. So it's the lake is you need to create the terrain that is appropriate for a lake, otherwise it will not work. So this is basically what I wanted to show today. And now I think you should download this file if you're a cartographer pledger at the top level. Then you can download this and you can play around with it, and you can simply delete in here. You can just right click on these and you can delete the shape if you just want to delete a single feature, or you can actually go in here and you can actually just delete the whole layout controller. And then that's why I have these things. And then you just go to the generator and you put in new ones, and that means that you empty it. You have a complete empty canvas, and you can just go in and use your own style, and you can build your own set of islands, and one big island or many small or whatever you feel like it, and play around with it and see what you want to create. So with this, I must say that the project is probably about halfway through. What is left to do are a few more tweaks with the rivers and wetlands, and after that it's texturing, forests, and roads and settlements, or rather settlements and roads, and then it's export. So hopefully within 3 or 4 weeks. I hope that by Christmas, when I'm looking at the Christmas decorations here, and by Christmas I hope to have we can look at something that is almost finished, and maybe by New Year's we can have this project finished. And that will be a milestone, because it will not only be this project, this setup will be the base of future projects, because now we only have a few terrain types. We only have one what I would call biome set of textures and stuff, but the cool thing is then we can just duplicate these and add other ones that work exactly the same. We don't need to, the foundations are there, because most landscapes, they only have different, they are made up of the same components. They have elevation, they have water more or less, but it still flows downhill. There are still lakes or and so on, and it will still have a texture, meaning once the setup works in one set of terrain with one set of textures, then we can just add more. There will be a little bit of tweaking when we introduce a new biome, is to make one biome work with the other one. So there will be adjustments and things to change when we get to that level, when we introduce a new, this is temperate terrain, but when we introduce desert or polar or whatever the next will be, so to speak, then there might be things that we need to change, but that's part of development, and that's part of the fun and the frustration. So thank you so much again, thank you so much for all your support and help, and then good luck with your tweaking and making your own islands, and then I will be back soon with the next, looking at textures and forests and stuff.